Hello, and thank you for joining me on this bicycle tour of Pleasure Point in Santa Cruz. If you are not familiar with Pleasure Point, it is part of the Live Oak area, and Live Oak is the unincorporated area between the cities of Santa Cruz and Capitola. But Pleasure Point is just one little section of Live Oak. It runs basically between Portola Drive and the coast, between about 41st Avenue and 26th Avenue. And it's world famous. It's actually world famous primarily among a certain set of people, which would be surfers, because there are many famous surf breaks there on Pleasure Point. Of course, we have the Hook. That's probably the most famous one, I guess. But there are a bunch of other, surfing spots that go up and down the coast right there on Pleasure Point. So on our tour, we're going to see 4 recently closed sales. We're actually coming up to the first one right here on 38th Avenue. This is just off of Portola Drive. And look, you can actually see they are doing the sewer lateral repair work, which is required now as a point of sale requirement in Santa Cruz County. So here you go, 721 38th Avenue. This just closed on September 26th, 2022. $1.26 million for a 681 square foot house. That's $1,850 a square foot. And it's a lot size. It's a good sized lot for Pleasure Point. 5,600 square foot lot. And it was sold after just 10 days on market. All right, so now we're going to go and see a little bit more of Pleasure Point. You know, Pleasure Point is kind of an active area because there are so many people who want to come and access the coast right there. You know, there aren't really any like big beaches in Pleasure Point, but there sure are a lot of little small ones. And in order to get to the beach, of course, you usually have to go down some kind of stairs to get to them. And this right here is Floral Street Park right there, little tiny neighborhood park. Very nice amenity for the area. That's on the left as we're driving down the street here. And it is a little bit busier in Pleasure Point than in some other neighborhoods in the Live Oak area, because again, it is so popular. People like to go surfing. Obviously, they might want to go to the beach. And they also might want to walk along East Cliff Drive, which is just stunning. And East Cliff Drive will be on part of this tour here. It'll be kind of towards the end of the tour, but you'll get to see that as well. And that's a very popular street for just really about anybody. I mean, for walking, for biking, for dog walking. I mean, like, it's a really great spot to be. So when I say Pleasure Point is busy, it certainly isn't every street in Pleasure Point. Actually, most streets in Pleasure Point are fairly quiet. But some of those busier streets, which go directly from Portola down to the water, like that was 38th Avenue where that house was, that went directly to East Cliff. You're going to have more traffic on those streets. But a lot of these interior streets, like we're on right now, you're not going to find a lot of traffic. I mean, they're typically very quiet, and you're just about as likely to see as somebody on a beach cruiser hauling a surfboard as you are a car on a lot of these streets. So, well, I do have some sales statistics for you, and I might as well share them with you right now. So what I did was I looked at all of the closed sales of single-family homes in Pleasure Point from the beginning of 2022 through the current date. And right now, as I'm reviewing these numbers, it's October 1st. But before I get to that, look at this. This is our second house on tour. This is 691 37th Avenue. This just closed on August 31st for $1.65 million, 840 square foot house. Sold for $1,964 a square foot. Now this house obviously quite a bit more updated than that one that we just looked at on 38th Avenue. But it was in the market for 14 days, so that's kind of a while to close. Built originally in 1946 on a 5,300 square foot lot. All right, now back with the Pleasure Point tour. These people right here you can see walking, these are the people who apparently just bought that house because they came out of that house and now they're taking a baby for a walk in a stroller. But isn't that nice? I mean, Pleasure Point, one of the things that I really find charming about this part of Santa Cruz County is there's no sidewalks. When I was a little kid, I grew up in Berkeley, and we had a family home in Santa Cruz, which we didn't live in, but we would come to visit once in a while. And it's actually over in Seacliff, but the Seacliff neighborhood isn't really too different from Pleasure Point in that respect. There was no sidewalks, and it always blew me away how people would walk in the middle of the street, and that's just how you get around in Pleasure Point. There's not sidewalks, so there's not a lot of traffic either, so people just walk oftentimes just down the middle of the street. All right, so about those sales statistics, I know you're dying to hear. So the average price per square foot for single-family homes in Pleasure Point since the beginning of 2022 through today, October 1st, 2022, $1,868 per square foot for a single-family home that is sold. Now, the average lot size, now I don't know if this is the average lot size in general, but in terms of closed sales this year in Pleasure Point, the average lot size was 4,291 square feet. The average house size of a house which closed escrow so far this year, 1,324 square feet. And on average, the homes that sold this year so far in Pleasure Point, 1967, that was the year, the average year built in Pleasure Point so far this year. And on average, it took homes in Pleasure Point to sell 27 days. It took 27 days on average. And now here's an interesting statistic for you. That is the average sale price. Now before I tell you the average sale price, I want to let you know that some homes on Pleasure Point can be fairly palatial, especially the ones that are right up against the water. So some of these homes can sell for millions and millions of dollars. And on the other end of the spectrum, we have that one on 38th Avenue, and we're going to see another one on 32nd Avenue that are more towards the bottom end of the spectrum. So just bear this in mind when I tell you the average sale price in Pleasure Point so far this year was $2,507,000. That's the average sale price for single-family homes closed in Pleasure Point this year. But the median sale price, and that's where half of the homes were more expensive and half of them were less expensive, the median price was $1,832,000 so far year to date for closed single-family home sales in Pleasure Point. So let's get on with the tour, and we're going on to another house, and this other house that's sold in Pleasure Point, it's on 32nd Avenue, and we'll be there in just a little bit. And look at that, you can see there's some multi-family housing there on the left. Pleasure Point is mostly single-family homes, but obviously there are some, duplexes and I'm sure triplexes and fourplexes, and there are a very few townhouses and condos kind of sprinkled in the mix, and there's also a few trailer parks here and there. Not too many of them, but there are a few. But it's an eclectic area. There's not really any commercial areas inside Pleasure Point. There are, like a couple of neighborhood markets and stuff like that, where you can go and pick up a quart of milk, or maybe like a 6-pack, or maybe a 12er. Maybe more true to the neighborhood, I guess. But yeah, not a lot of commerce going on in Pleasure Point. It's basically a residential area. And that's what people love about it, it's quiet, it's got fantastic weather, close to the beach. All right, now we're coming up on this other one here. Now look at this thing right here. This, here we go, take a look. I'll show you. There we go, there she blows. This is 220 32nd Avenue, and it's not very far from the beach at all. So its proximity to the beach obviously is one of its big factors, but it's basically looks to be a teardown. There's no interior photos of this property at all. It's sold for $1.1 million, but look at that, it's only a 2,439 square foot lot, just not a very big property at all. So basically it's lot value, so a 2,400 square foot lot sold for $1.1 million. But again, it's just a couple of blocks from the cliff. So let's resume our little tour of Pleasure Point here. And it's interesting in Pleasure Point. There's a special zoning in Pleasure Point that they created a few years ago, because what you were seeing was that people were buying houses like that one on 32nd that we just saw. They were buying those old houses and tearing them down, and not always were they actual teardowns, and a lot of times they were actually functioning homes, but they would tear them down anyway because they were really buying them for the lot. And then they were building like these big monstrous houses, and you kind of have to when you're paying that much for the dirt. It doesn't make any sense to build a little small house on it, right? You want to maximize the economy of home building, so you would build a larger house that would be a more appropriate improvement, as we say, given the land cost. But because these people were making these big two-story houses, they made a special zoning for Pleasure Point that specifically says how far your setback is. Basically bigger setback if you have a two-story house compared to a one-story house, because the people in Pleasure Point were getting bent out of shape about all these monster houses going in and blocking their light and their sunlight, and making them feel like they're really all jammed in there. So there's a special zoning overlay just for Pleasure Point to make sure that when you do build a new house on one of these lots, that you really do maintain enough space between your neighboring properties, so that you can enjoy that sunlight, because that's a lot of what people really appreciate and love about the area, frankly, obviously, is the weather. And so if you're just jammed in there next to some gigantic house on a small lot, you can see why people wouldn't want that to happen. So there goes democracy and zoning in action, I guess. Okay, so now we're coming up to our fourth sale here on Pleasure Point. This is kind of at the edge of Pleasure Point. Check it out. This one overlooks a little lagoon there. And here we go. 331 Palisades Avenue. This one sold for $1.84 million. It was only on the market for 7 days. It's only a 1,154 square foot house, which means they got almost $1,600 a square foot for this property. It was built in 1961, but it is on a generous 7,400 square foot lot, which again is adjacent to that lagoon there. So that's pretty nice. Kind of like a more updated house too, totally not original, and they were working on it. When I drove by, there were contractors already working on it, because again, that was a very recent sale in Pleasure Point. And when people buy and sell houses, it's a terrific generator of economic activity. People typically put like another 1% to like 5% on average, something like that, more money into a home after they buy it, doing kind of like improvements and renovations and repairs, and just making it a better fit for your particular needs that you may have. And now we've already seen that on two of these properties, that first one on 38th and now this one on Palisades. So all right, but back on with our bike tour, just sort of cruising around through Pleasure Point, and just love how quiet and open it is. You can see why this is such a sought after and desirable neighborhood, even if you're not a surfer, even if that's not your bag. There's plenty of reasons to live in Pleasure Point. And I should mention that while there is not a lot of the commercial stuff here in actual Pleasure Point itself, on Portola Drive, there are a lot of restaurants and a number of coffee shops and markets and stuff like that. So it is very close to a lot of neighborhood amenities. So okay, so now we are fast forwarding here. This is East Cliff Drive, and we're going to get to the water here in a little bit. But before I get to the water, I wanted to just take a little detour here down the street, just to show you. And again, as you get closer to the edge of the water, you'll see that a lot of these houses tend to get bigger and more expensive. So a lot of the interior properties aren't quite so large, but for a while now, as you get closer to the water, the houses have been getting bigger and significantly, more expensive, obviously. So here we are. We're going to come into a little cul-de-sac right here, and it's dead ends right here. And here you'll see some people just doing what people love to do, hang out and enjoy the glorious coastline. Really very nice. All right, but now we're going to head on back and drive down East Cliff. And I've always loved East Cliff. I mean, I've obviously lived here for quite some time. I'm not a native. I'm from Berkeley, right? I just said that, right? But since that first time that I started coming here, I've always loved East Cliff Drive. It's just a real special place and has a tremendous vibe, and I don't surf, I mean, like, I'm not a surfer. My kid surfs, but I myself am not a surfer, so I can't claim to be, that part of the, part of the culture, really, but my son certainly is, and so now I spend a fair amount of time on East Cliff, really, because I'm taking him, surfing all the time. I don't go surfing with him, but I take him there, I drop him off, I pick him up, and he sure loves the heck out of it. So there you go. So in just a little bit, we'll be back on East Cliff Drive proper, and again, one of my favorite spots here in Santa Cruz County. All right, here we are, East Cliff Drive. Got the surfer there, check. So now I'm just going to take a leisurely drive down East Cliff. A lot of the houses on the left, have fabulous, fabulous ocean views. Once in a while a big truck goes by and it harshes your mellow, but that's okay. To each their own. So here we go. Really nice and mellow. And as I recall, this used to be a 2-lane street, but then due to erosion, they cut off one of the lanes and made it for pedestrian use only. And now it's just a 1-lane street with this really nice trail or path, I guess, along East Cliff Drive. Just really, really nice. So, so on the water, you can see there off to the right, you'd be looking at Aptos right there. Aptos, La Selva Beach, and you can't really see Capitola from here because it's kind of blocked by the point itself, but that's basically that coastline that you're looking at back there. That is Aptos, essentially. Look at the construction fencing along the left. A lot of these houses obviously are being worked on, and they're becoming bigger and nicer as more and more money moves into town, predominantly obviously from Silicon Valley, but really from points all around. I mean, like, it's just a great place to live. So a lot of folks, want to have some beautiful trophy properties here. And in fact, here on the right is a very, very famous house. This is the house on the right side of the road, which is not very many houses on the right side of the road, but that's Jack O'Neill's house. O'Neill, Sporting Goods, which basically is, wetsuits. Jack O'Neill invented the wetsuit, I guess. Or is that true? I'm not an expert on surf history, but Jack O'Neill was a pioneer, certainly, in the surf industry. And he passed away a year or two ago, but that was his house right there, right on the point. That greenhouse, and it's again one of the only houses on the actual water side of the street. So O'Neill is no longer owned locally. I think it's like a Belgian conglomerate owns it now. It's one of their portfolio of brands, but my understanding is that they actually still do the design work right here in Santa Cruz, actually not very far at all from where this is right now. So the clothing and the wetsuits and all that stuff, all that work is still done here, but the company is now part of an international conglomerate. So there you go. That's just a way of things. All right, well, now we're coming to the actual Hook, very famous place. Look, the guy got his pizza right there, probably from Pleasure Pizza, which is right there at 41st and Portola. So yeah, now we're coming over to the actual Hook, very famous surf spot, the Hook. Usually you'll find dozens of surfers out there, really day or night practically, because it's such the place to surf. Again, I don't surf, but I like looking at the surfers sort of bobbing around. Like here goes another one of the houses, which is on the water side, but again, there's just not very many of them. Almost all the houses are on the inland side of East Cliff Drive. Again, very popular place for running, walking, dog walking, biking. It's just really nice out there, what can I tell you? I certainly was a happy camper on my e-bike, just cruising along. It's such a beautiful spot. So this is the parking lot here for the hook. So there's a nice parking lot right there. So this is the actual hook itself. Off to the right, there's some stairs going down there, and off to the left is a parking lot. And they usually have like a hot dog stand right there where they sell hot dogs on the weekends. And there on the left is a public restroom. There's probably parking for, 50 cars, something like that. The parking lot is often full, so especially on the weekends. So here we are, we're going down now 41st Avenue. This is like the end of 41st Avenue. And then off to the right here would be Opal Cliffs. Opal Cliffs is not technically part of Pleasure Point, but it is part of Live Oak, and there are many lovely houses down on Opal Cliffs, and rumor has it that a lot of Silicon Valley executives own homes there, like Mark Zuckerberg, for example, very famously supposedly owns a home there. A number of other Facebook people and Apple, Google, every other house it seems like is owned by some anonymous LLC, and that's your clue that probably somebody whose privacy is tightly guarded owns that property. So now we're coming to the end of our Pleasure Point bike tour. I do hope you have enjoyed it. Portola Drive is coming up here. And 41st and Portola Avenue, it's a really hot happening spot. A lot of great restaurants there, and coffee shops, and penny creameries there, the nice ice cream shop, and obviously there's surf shops there on the left where they sell surfboards and wetsuits and all that stuff. So great, tremendous area, and if ever you want to go see some properties in the area, please reach out to me. You can call me anytime. All right, thanks so much for watching. I really appreciate it.